Something is very wrong. I didn't get my way. I need to lay down. This is Rebooty and the Beast, a podcast in 2 parts. I'm Matt Molinaro.
And I'm N. Burke. In the first episode, we review an original piece of media, and in the subsequent episodes, we discuss the reboots. And this is a reboot episode, continuation in the wonderful world of Oz.
That's right. And here we are. We've arrived in present day.
Yeah, we're finally doing Wicked in present day, 2024. We
Yes,
both saw
Wicked.
it in the theater.
Part 1. Yes. How did you like the experience of going to the theater again and trying to be in the headspace of both being a casual movie watcher and reviewer or whatnot?
Yeah. Well, in San Diego, so I recently moved from Santa Barbara to San Diego, and in San Diego we have some pretty fancy movie theaters where they like the seats recline and you can get like service at your chairs and stuff. So we ended up seeing Wicked with Miles's mom while she was in town for the holidays, and went to the fancy theater to do it. So it was like a fun experience, independent of the movie, which I will share my feelings on as we go along.
Okay. I love those types of theaters. It's been a while since I've been to one where you actually get the service to your seat, but that is so fun.
Yeah, it's really nice. It creates a very different experience, I feel like.
Yeah, it's much more casual.
Yes.
And interactive.
And homey. Yeah.
Huh?
And kind of like casual and homey because you're almost in
Yes.
like recliners, kind of like at
Yes.
home sort of thing. I love it.
I love it. Okay, well, Wicked Part 1, as many of you may know, because Part 2 will be coming out next year, I think around the same time they said.
I think so, yeah.
And I'm sure it'll be just as long. And so this was a long movie. And so I know you're not a musical person in general.
Well, no.
But-
And it's funny. I was going to say, I hate musicals. I have a very strong aversion to long movies. I get really upset if movies are long. And I also, as we've discussed in the previous 2 episodes, am not a big fan of the world of Oz. So everything leading up to this indicated that I would hate this movie.
Okay, and I wanted to ask, since, you can avoid most musicals if you are not a musical fan, but I feel like
Yes.
Wicked, when it first hit Broadway, obviously was like a huge, huge thing. I feel like it was part of a big Broadway revival at the time, and you couldn't avoid it. So, like, for me, as a big Broadway person, I've never seen Wicked. I've never seen, before this, I've never seen a production of it, not even, like, community theater. So,
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, I guess it's kind of a big show, I think, to put on for community theater.
Yeah.
So you just don't see it done that often. And if it is, it's like kids and no thank you. So anyway, I knew a lot of the songs because I feel like for me, you couldn't avoid some of the songs if you liked Broadway at all or were just around at the time. So everyone knows like the little howl, the little thing. Most people have
The battle
heard
cry.
some version of Defying Gravity or Popular.
Yeah.
So were you aware of some of the songs at all before, or some of Wicked, the general idea or anything before you saw it?
A little bit. I knew that Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth were
Oh, you mean
the
Adele Dazeem.
original stars. Adele Dazeem, sorry. The wickedly talented Adele Dazeem. I knew that they were the titular Glinda and Elphaba, and I will embarrassingly confess that my introduction to some of the songs from Wicked came from Glee, because they had
makes
that whole
sense.
episode about Kurt and Rachel, I think, competing
Yes.
to sing Defying Gravity.
And
And-
what's her name? Mercedes.
Was she competing too?
I think all 3 of them were. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Why am I a stickler for this plot?
Honestly. And I know Adele Dazeem and Kristen Chenoweth both guested on Glee at some point. So I like kind of was familiar with them through all of that.
Okay. I mean, I'm not far behind you. I kind of was too. And I think Popular and Defying Gravity have been spoofed in a lot of things too in their own way. So General Melodies. But I have to be honest, I didn't know the plot of this at
I didn't
all.
either. No.
At all. And I still don't know how it ends.
Oh, me either.
And I'm spoiler averse, if you don't already know this, listeners, from previous podcasts or this one. I'm very anti-spoiler. I hate spoilers. And so this has been a very challenging experience for me.
Oh, yeah, to not find out what's happening.
Yeah, because okay, so I am someone who, when I haven't seen a musical, but I am interested in it, I'll just kind of listen to the soundtrack of it, like on Spotify or whatever. And I've done that with Wicked before. So I've heard the whole thing from beginning to end, including whatever is going to be in part 2. But I wasn't
right.
I haven't seen it yet. I don't pay too much attention to the plot lines. I'm kind of listening to do I like this song when I'm doing that? You know what I mean? Is this a vibe of a musical that I would want to see the whole thing? I kind of connect to the song, and that's what gets me into the musical.
Yeah. And you're missing all the context around the song. So it's not necessarily easy to go oh, here's what must be happening in the story.
Yes. In this first part, there's a song that I had heard a few times. And I was like, well, I didn't even know who Fiyero is. So this doesn't do anything for me. You know what I mean? So I kind of probably know more just peripherally from hearing the songs. But now that I've seen first part, I now avoid listening to the second part of the songs from
the
musical, because now that I know stuff, I'm okay, now it's going to make sense to me. So now I'm going to be for a whole year unable to listen to the original cast of Wicked singing the songs, which I like to do. And
so you're afraid that your brain has become too powerful and that you'll be able to figure it out now?
Well, listen, you know me from our book series. When I get a hook in something, I think everything. I'm suspicious. I'm curious about everything afterwards. Oh, this must be in that, and this must be in that. So I can't stop my brain. And the other part that's challenging is there are so many allusions and things in this movie to what I'm assuming is going to happen in part 2, because they're allusions to the Wizard of Oz series.
Yeah.
And so I will say, spoiler alert-ish for those people who are listening, there are some little pieces of trivia. I'm not going to do it all, because I've watched so many videos that have pissed me off now that say they're not spoilery. Oh, not spoilery. You can watch this. This isn't spoilery. And it's little Easter eggs in Wicked. And then you watch it and they're totally spoilery.
Ugh,
unless you are a total moron. They have to say a little stupid line maybe this, a certain it's stop. You ruined it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have to avoid that kind of stuff. But I'm going to pepper in some of trivia throughout the movie that I think is kind of fun. Nothing too spoilery. But if you are someone that doesn't like any of that kind of stuff, just be aware it's going to be here.
Yeah.
All right. That's my whole spiel.
I have my guesses as to what's going to happen in part 2, because we know the story ultimately of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Right.
But, who knows?
That's where we were at too. And then some of those things were okay, I didn't need to see that.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the little, hold on, there's an airplane. Okay, I think that's good enough. I have the little blurb from IMDb, the little summary, if you're ready for it.
Okay. I'm ready.
It says, Elphaba, a misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Galinda, a popular girl, become friends at Shiz University in the land of Oz. After an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz, their friendship reaches a crossroads.
I'm going to say one thing off the bat. I had a really hard time with the university being named Shiz.
For Shiz?
Because I'm just so used to being for shiz and you're the shiz and all of that it's just when I first heard it, I was like, surely they can't have named the university that, and then sure enough they did.
Okay. And do you know the comedian Mateo Lane?
Oh yes.
Okay. He has this video we just recently watched. You remember the TV show Next from MTV, of course.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, so Mateo Lane has a video where he watches an old episode of Next. I think actually this one was Date My Mom, actually. Same world. And it's a episode of Date My Mom, and one of the mom, and he watches it and roasts it. It's really funny. I recommend it. But one of the moms is the kid says, Mom, don't forget to show the guy that you're dating or whatever, talk gangsta. They're very white. And the mom
Oy.
says faux shiz and things like that about 700. Like, you cannot believe how many times she does things like that. It is cringy and makes you want to scream the whole time. But I can't. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. I keep when I think of shiz, I get lost in it after a while, but I can't just casually refer to it as shiz and not snicker like a child.
Oh man, that's so funny.
For shiz. Remember when that was a thing, like, all the time?
Oh, of course. I think it originated with Snoop Dogg, right?
I don't know, but
like, because he would say "fishes on my nizzle."
Yeah, that was a time in history.
Yeah.
Speaking of Snoop Dogg, watch the Martha Stewart documentaries if you haven't. Anywho.
Oh my God.
Moving on. So casting, I think we all basically know the cast. Ariana Grande Butera. I didn't know she used her full last name these days. And Cynthia
I think she
Erivo.
did it for this movie. There's something about it where she talked about why she used her childhood last name.
Okay. I did hear that she's, I don't know if it's true or not, like, thinking of sort of transitioning her career into Broadway, like, exclusively for a while after this. Maybe that has something to do with it, too. And then Cynthia Erivo play Galinda and Elphaba, respectively. Jonathan Bailey is Fiyero, who we'll meet later. He is so attractive.
He's a very good-looking man, yeah.
He's an attractive man and a great dancer. And then we'll meet other people along the way. I don't know if there's... Yeah,
well, the whole time I saw Peter Dinklage in the credits, and I was like waiting for him to appear, and then probably like 2 hours into the movie, I was like, "Oh, he's the goat."
He's the goat.
It took me a while. I was like, "Oh, that's the voice. That's Peter Dinklage," because I was like, "When is he showing up in this movie?"
Yeah.
Took me a while.
God, I have to just.
Bowen Yang.
Did you say Bowen Yang?
I said Bowen Yang, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible, Jeff Goldblum. I have to say, Bowen Yang and Bronwyn James as, like, Galinda's little posse were killing me throughout the whole movie.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I don't know why I found Bowen Yang really irritating in this movie, and maybe it's just because, like, what sort of bothered me is I was unclear. I know it's called Shiz University, so I was like, I guess they're supposed to be adults, but Bowen Yang is like a 35-year-old man, and he's playing like a little schoolgirl type character, and it just felt weird to me.
Maybe it's like your familiarity with him outside of the movie.
Maybe.
Yeah. Listen, we had Dorothy played by a 12-year-old, played by a 16-year-old.
That's true. And then Dorothy played by Diana Ross, who is like 33.
Yeah, and then they literally had to age her up to 24.
Yeah.
The youngest they could get away with.
Anyway.
I just found them really funny throughout the movie as her, like, little backups and their little reactions and things. And I did think I did read somewhere or hear somewhere that a lot of the lines they did were ad-libs. Like, the director basically told the two of them to kind of do a lot of takes where they did their own thing. And he's like, most of the takes that they used were them just kind of riffing.
That's fun. I love that.
Okay, so that's the cast. And are you ready to get into it?
I am. Let's do it.
So it starts and it has the old school sort of Universal logo and all of that. So a lot of little nods to that. And you get the voiceover. It's kind of like radio announcer, gargled voiceover of what's just happened. We're kind of beginning this Wicked Part 1 at the end of the Wizard of Oz. The part where the Wicked Witch of the West has just been melted by Dorothy and they're on their way out.
Yes.
And we're in the room seeing the scene of the crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was fun to see.
I agree.
The little aftermath. It kind of like shows a different, you already get the different vibe you're going to get from this. It's like Galinda's voice saying what's happened in the way that we've heard before. The Wicked Witch's death. She's been melted by a bucket of water. And we kind of see the flying monkeys burst forth from the castle. And we see this landscape and the rainbow. And we see a little like little figures we see from above of the iconic group from The Wizard of Oz, the four of them and Toto, and they're trotting towards Emerald City or whatnot with the broom, and we know where we're at in time.
Yeah.
as they're like flying over the scene, we're like approaching Munchkin Land, and we hear and see little characters. The Munchkins in this movie are not played by little folks, little people. They're played by children, and that's an update from the original. I think
it's
The Wiz did
better.
that as well.
Oh, did they? Okay.
The Wiz changed the Munchkins from being played by little people to being just played
children.
by actors that were not little people.
Yeah.
But they still carry the Munchkin Land, and if you hear in the background, they're playing the tune "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead" from the original. Hey, hey.
Call back.
What do you think so far?
So far I really like it. I think that I knew nothing about this going in, so I thought it was kind of fun that it was starting with the Wicked Witch's death and then like sort of going back to a little sequence of events that we don't see in the original Wizard of Oz movie of Glinda coming down and talking to the Munchkins about the Wicked Witch's death.
Yes, which I loved. And I loved the set already is very beautiful, and we see like all of those tulips. Did you know they planted like thousands of tulips for the movie?
Yes. I was reading that they that the director wanted the world to feel as real as possible, and so created as many practical effects and practical sets as possible so as to not use CGI for everything, which I thought was great.
Yeah, and I thought it was really successful because now we're in Munchkin Land and we see the success of that in the set here. It feels like a real place.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel tiny. It feels like an appropriately sized place, like a real place where these folks live. And I thought it was really cool. And Glinda comes down in the bubble, and unlike in the original Wizard of Oz where she's in a which I loved, that shimmery bubble of nothingness. This is sort of like a bubble carriage from the sky, which I love this update. Yes.
I have a theory that Glinda doesn't actually have any magic.
I'm wondering what happens, because something's got to explain. Because by the end of this film, we do not see Glinda use any magical powers.
Right.
And that is something I've been wondering about myself. Because right now she comes down in sort of a contraption.
Yes.
You know? So that is definitely something to think about, I would say. And she has this beautiful wand, but she just kind of waves it around.
And she pops the bubble with it, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Interesting.
We're already here.
Yeah.
And I love the costuming, Ariana Grande, this beautiful...
Amazing.
Everything. The costuming in this movie overall, I'll just say blanket statement now.
Yeah, is great.
Beautiful.
Really, really good.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, we'll talk about it, but continue.
So she comes down and they're all like, okay, is it true? And she's, of course, explaining to them, like, yes, she's dead. It's accurate. And we get you look around the city and you see all of these posters of the Wicked Witch. And we see her, like, face exaggerated into, like, the witch that we see in, like, kind of the first movie. Like, with the big nose and all of the scary things. And it kind of feels like political posters, like political propaganda posters.
Totally, yeah.
You know, it's like the Wicked Witch, and everyone is sort of...
Somebody online I saw made a meme that said, it looks like Madame Morrible learned to use Canva and went totally wild.
Oh my god, it's so true. It's so true. And then we get the first real song of the movie, which is No One Mourns the Wicked, which is between the people of Munchkinland celebrating the death of the Wicked Witch, because no one mourns the wicked, and Ariana Grande, Glinda, singing operatically along with it. And I thought this scene in general and the song was really well done by her, because I feel like in this part of the movie she has to act out a very nuanced performance, because we are learning throughout this movie, and we're expecting that they have some sort of relationship, obviously, which we are unaware of, and the citizens of Munchkinland are unaware of at this point. And she's dead, and everyone's celebrating, but she knows her, and you could see all over just her face, even, and her movements, and the way she sings, the challenge she's having with portraying a public face about this in a certain way, or feeling a certain way about it in general. Who knows? But this was really cool.
Yeah, I think she did a great job of, you know, doing whatever she had to do publicly, but kind of like hiding some of her emotions or trying to control some of her emotions about what she were clearly very complicated feelings, and we still don't know what happens in part two. I personally believe, my personal belief is that Glinda and Elphaba were in love with each other.
There is a whole school of thought that believes that there's that sort of relationship between them that I've heard, and I've not explored too much because of spoilers, but just in case. But I've heard that bits be said for a long time, even from the musical.
Interesting. Okay.
This is also during this song we get a backstory of the Wicked Witch, whose name in this is Elphaba. She's not been named Elphaba in any other version of Oz and whatnot.
No, she was Eveline or Evermean in The Wiz, right?
Yes. And in other versions, she's either not had a name or had a different name altogether. I should mention that this is based on... Okay, so the Wicked is based on a sort of fan fiction novel series that was made, I think, in the early 2000s or late 90s.
Okay.
And that was based off of the world of The Wizard of Oz. It's not like a canon to the Wizard of Oz series, but it's someone who was reimagining different stories from The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
This was one of them. This was like Wicked, the backstory of the Wicked Witch of the West or something like that. The life and times of her. But the other books in that series from Wicked are other stories from the world of Oz, not necessarily continuing this one. And then the musical has a lot of takes that it takes from that it just explores totally differently. So if anyone were to read the book Wicked after seeing the movie Wicked, they would be shocked and maybe not ready. It's a much darker read. It's much more political, I hear.
Yeah, that's what I heard, yeah.
And I hear it's great, but it's not this. So just something to think about. We usually talk about that at the beginning, but... I wanted to mention that because I heard that the author chose Elphaba as her name based on the author of Wizard of Oz. It's his name.
Oh, okay.
L.F. Baum or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So he put like Elphaba. L.F. Baum. So I think that was fun. But we get her backstory where we find out through this song that Elphaba was born green. Her mom and dad, her dad was the mayor of Munchkinland, and he like went away on a trip, and her mom had a affair with a mysterious man who comes in with a green vial and has her drink it down. It's kind of unclear whether it's like a drug or some sort of alcohol or some sort of elixir for fun and pleasure and whatnot. But this tryst has her become pregnant with Elphaba, and when she's born, she's green.
Yeah.
And everyone's horrified. No one's expecting it. No one knows what to do. She's like shunned since birth, and the dad wants to send her away and get rid of her. But when he attempts to, clearly like Elphaba, not knowing what she's doing, she's an infant, has some sort of powers, and everything in the room like gets shot to the ceiling like telepathically. So they're like, can't do that.
Yeah.
We will see on the floor here, if you look, the pair of silver slippers that we'll see later in the movie, which is Elphaba's mother's slippers. And I don't know if you noticed, but I did hear this. I didn't notice this. A detail to these silver slippers, that on the heels, they're little tornadoes.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Little cyclones, if you look at them closely.
That's awesome.
And we also see throughout this little story that animals have like regular jobs, sort of like akin with people, and they speak. So Elphaba's mostly raised by a nanny named Dulcibert, who is actually a bear.
But was not part of the Wicked musical I read. This was a movie creation.
Yes, a totally a created character. And she acts as a nanny for the family. We see other animals doing jobs like this as well and sort of interacting normally with the family. So this is like a very different time, and we see this is very normal here. And then we see like fast forward. The children are Elphaba's a little older. She has a little sister named Nessa Rose, who we obviously know will be the Wicked Witch of the East, based on their relation.
Oh, I had not put that together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming. Unless she ends up having another sister. I cannot imagine this being different, So...
Huh. Okay.
And Nessa Rose is in a wheelchair. And she's younger than her by a few years, and she's not green. And we see that they're both kind of bullied by other kids for being different. And they both kind of want something different for themselves. The little girl who plays Nessa Rose as a little kid, she only has like 3 lines, but her voice So fucking cute. Yeah. But we hear about the Wizard of Oz. We see Elphaba's early wish to go see him because he could grant any wish, and he loves the color green. That's why he made the Emerald City green. And if you go to him, he'll promise you anything, and he'll do something for you. And she wants to be de-greenified.
Yeah.
There's a moment where some bullies come and bully them, and we see some... I have a theory about this moment. We see some bullies come and bully them as kids, and some rocks float in the air as they're being bullied, and it looks like Elphaba has, put some telepathic powers to use and has the rocks in the air, and then the rocks shoot out at the bullies and scare them away. And she and Nessa Rose, they're comfort each other, and the dad comes over and blames Elphaba and runs away. And someone comes over and says that, you shouldn't have been blamed for that. I don't think she did that. I think her sister did it.
Oh, do you think so?
I do. I think she had the rocks in the air, and I think her sister, Nessa Rose, not knowing what she was doing because she had her fingers in her ears and she was screaming, I think she got overwhelmed by it, and she is the one who has the more vengeful sort of spirit in that way.
Interesting.
And I think Nessa Rose, I think Elphaba was going to her to be you shouldn't have done that. But, of course, Elphaba gets blamed for everything. Yeah. I have a theory. Something is going on there.
I have a theory.
It's a demon.
Yeah.
And then we cut back to, the whole scene that... This is all during the opening scene and the first big song that introduces you to everything. We see a huge... What do you call those? The stick man thing?
Effigy.
Effigy, thank you. Of the witch... made of sticks and stuff. It's on fire. It's very intense.
Somebody said the witch just died and the Munchkins had that effigy ready to go. That's jobless behavior.
Listen, what are they doing? What are they doing? The Lollipop Guild?
Right.
So, and we see, and it's very, very intense, and then we get, the end of that is Wicked Part 1 on the screen, and we see it in the classic Wizard of Oz font, and the last thing that happens here before we transition into the flashback is one of the Munchkins says to Glinda, who I thought this was really funny. Glinda's okay, I'm out of here, bye, and pops on the bubble as all this madness is happening. And the only reason she stopped is because one of the Munchkins screams out to her didn't you know her? And she's what did you say?
Yeah.
But then she's I did know her. We were friends once. Well, we kind of crossed paths at school. She kind of walks it back a little bit because everyone's horrified. Yeah. And now we'll get the flashback of what will be the rest of the movie, the story of how they sort of met at Shiz University and onward. So I'm going to take a pause. What are you thinking so far?
I still am really enjoying it. I thought it was interesting to Ariana, after finishing the movie, seeing how she acted during that scene where they're burning the effigy of the witch. Again, some really nuanced facial expressions during that scene where I feel she's having to, portray one thing to everyone while feeling something else clearly, something more complicated.
Yeah.
And I loved the burning of the effigy. I thought that was just so perfect for the sentiment of this character's public persona in the world of Oz. Mm-hmm. Even though I know we were leading up to getting the more nuanced version. So I thought I'm on board with everything so far.
Okay. And the song, you can't fast forward through these songs. So how did you feel? You're not a musical person.
I'm not. Well, I'll just spoil it right now and say that I loved every song in this movie.
Oh, great.
Yes.
I thought this was a great song, too. I was least familiar with some of these group numbers.
Yes.
And I thought this was great. And I thought her operatic voice was so perfect. If you go back and listen to the Kristen Chenoweth version, the two of these actresses and singers, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, they do such a good job of holding a space for the original. Really honoring the original, what's the word I'm looking for? Arrangements and yes. Intonations and sort of characterizations of the original actresses, but they really make them their own without making it feel cornball or misplaced. It's really impressive, I have to say.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I I know she's very talented. I know she's very beloved. I'm not a fan of Kristen Chenoweth's voice. Like there's just something about it that doesn't click for me, but I thought Ariana was phenomenal in this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can
both
see
her
that.
and Cynthia, like this, and the fact that piece of trivia, that they recorded all of this live while filming.
Yes.
Did you know that? That's bonkers to me. Like the fact that they were able to pull that off, because the vocals are really impressive.
Yeah, and I have heard a lot of criticism of the movie that there's been some sort of like, audio technician stuff that happened afterwards that people are saying like you should have just left the raw kind of edits. But whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
I good for you, audio technicians. I'm good. I'm cool.
Yeah, I
We
agree.
cool, girl. All right. So we are at Shiz University. We flash back, and we are with now Cynthia Erivo, and she's arriving. She's green. She looks great. I love her costume. I love her outfit.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Let's go. What are your thoughts?
At no point in the entire movie did I look at her and think it looks like she's been painted green. She
Yeah.
looked green. Like however they accomplished that with makeup artistry was very impressive, because I never saw a moment where I was like, oh, there that looks patchy or that looks uneven or any of that. She looked green, and they did a great job with that.
Really impressive. Like, this could have been
Yeah.
She-Hulk. This could have been
Yes.
horrific.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And I liked her costume because it never felt like a witch. It never felt
No.
like an undercover witch. Like she's about to become you know what I mean? It felt like an appropriate outfit for someone of her personality and
Yeah.
like look at life and stuff. And I liked how it was like just kind of like a dark, kind of like Jenna Ortega showing up at at the University of Beetlejuice or whatever. It was very just
I think they did the thing. I'd have to go back and rewatch it again, but I think they did the thing that you sometimes see in movies where when a character is becoming, I'm simplifying this and not saying this is her character exactly, but when a character like more and more of their evilness is revealed, their costume becomes darker.
Yes.
I think she like shows up in like black and white early on, and then things become darker and darker throughout the course of the movie.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right. Yeah, I love this. So she's arriving at Shiz University. She's not here to enroll. She is...
No, she's there for Nessa,
Yeah.
her sister.
Exactly. Nessa's enrolling. She's ready to go, and we find out that the relationship we saw earlier between Dad having a favorite child obviously has not changed. We also have learned, I don't know if I mentioned this, but her mother died during childbirth of Nessa Rose. So
Yeah.
her mother's no longer in the picture. So it's the three of them here, and the dad is like fawning all over Nessa, who clearly does not want help. She's an independent person. She does not need
Right.
all of the help that people give her, and clearly this is like frustrating her. The only person who seems to understand that Nessa is a fully like capable person to take care of herself is Elphaba.
Elphaba, yeah.
Everyone else is like Elphaba is in these scenes trying to like get people to leave them alone basically and let her just do her own thing, but her dad is not getting the hint.
No.
Ariana Grande shows up with her posse. She's the only one who's not in like the regular uniform. She's in a pink version that's very like Elle-Woods-ified.
Yes, I was obsessed. I thought it was great.
Same. And she shows up with her little posse, which is Bowen Yang and Bronwyn James. That's, I don't know their names in the movie. Shen and Fanny. There you go.
Yes.
They're her like besties and clearly like her little mean girl clique. They're nice, not mean, nice mean, nice nasty.
They're the mean girls of the school for sure.
But everyone is obsessed with Glinda. Her name is Galinda, Galinda, which we'll get to later. So she's very center of attention, and everyone fawns over her. And when Elphaba shows up, everyone looks at her and like causes a circle, and she's like, oh, "You're green." She's like, oh, "I am."
And she has like what I loved about her character was she had her speech ready to go of like, no, I did not eat grass as a child. No, whatever. Like,
yes.
All the questions that she's clearly been asked her entire life. She's like, all right, let's get it out of the way.
Exactly. And she's like, and I'm not here for me. Don't worry. I'm here for my sister. She's a perfectly acceptable color.
Yeah.
And we see that her sister is gifted the silver slippers, Nessa Rose, with little cyclones on them from her mother by their father. And, she's like ready to go and have a new start. Nessa Rose wants a new start where she doesn't have to be, it seems like.
Essentially Elphaba's sister.
Yeah, exactly. Because Elphaba's like the pariah of her town or whatever. So.
Yeah.
She's off to go in. They're kind of watching her go, but the dad is like, under no circumstances are you letting her out of your sight. You have to watch her go into her room and everything. And begrudgingly she goes because she knows Nessa's not going to want this. She doesn't want it. So she's now inside watching the, everyone's being welcomed in. We see there are a few professors at this, opening commencement speech that are animals, like the goat. But just like a couple. Everyone else is a person. We meet Madame Marble, who is the dean, I guess, of the school.
Yeah, the Dean of Sorcery.
Oh, Dean of Sorcery. There you go. And she's played by Michelle Yeoh. And she comes out. I loved her look. This,
amazing,
whimsical hair into it. And she's very regal. Everyone respects her. She's got powers. And Galinda is there for sorcery. So she's very excited. Very excited to see her. And she gives her little speech. Welcome, everybody. Yada, yada, yada. We get the point. Then we get to see how everyone's kind of interacting. We see Galinda trying to get Madame Morrible's attention, and Madame Morrible cannot care less.
No.
We see people fawning over Nessa, people calling her tragically beautiful. And then we see, Nessa being frustrated that Elphaba's even there, and she wants to, have her out of her face and stop causing unnecessary attention. And just when Elphaba's about to leave, suddenly one of the teachers comes over. I forget her name. She's a made-up character for this movie as well, I believe.
Yeah, I forget what her name is, too.
Yeah, but she's good. I think she just serves as a character that they created to kind of bury a lead for later, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But she comes in and she's kind of nasty. She comes over and she's like, I'll help her. You get out of here, green lady, and I'll take your sister. But Nessa doesn't want to be helped, and this woman doesn't get the point, and she's taking her chair and
pushing her.
Yeah, pushing her, and she's frustrated, and Elphaba doesn't have control of her powers still, we find, because she, if frustratedly says let her go, and all of the chairs from the area shoot out and telepathically, and Nessa's chair and herself are raised into the air with a bunch of other things, and it's a whole scene. We see, also, the crest of the school, which is the Wizard of Oz, crumbles from the wall, and there's all these animals underneath it in robes being, respected as staff.
Mm-hmm.
And Madame Morrible is watching this, and she doesn't stop it. She seems very impressed, and she actually comes down, because Nessa Rose looks at Elphaba after this, as in, you ruined everything. This was my chance for a new start. But Madame Morrible comes down and lies and says, I did that to show you expect the unexpected, and everyone just kind of walks away. The only person who's...
Everyone's like, wow.
Yeah, wow. They're all foolish. The only people who seem to know that what really happened was obviously those who did it, and you see Galinda looking on that looked fishy.
Suspish, yeah.
Suspish. And then, because of this display, Madame Morrible says, you're gonna take a room here. Someone's gonna find a room for you and volunteer. Do I have any volunteers for Elphaba's roommate? Glinda is trying to get to the front for herself, not realizing she's volunteering, and then she volunteers herself to join her in her room.
Yeah.
But before she can, Madame Morrible wants to speak privately to Elphaba.
Yeah.
Any thoughts so far?
I love Michelle Yeoh. I thought she was great. For our other podcast, somebody online said that she should play Cadswan in The Wheel of Time, and now I can't unsee it. I feel like she'd be perfect for it. And I think Glinda or Ariana's doing a great job as the sort of suck up, but also self-centered character.
Yes.
Which is not, again, not knowing anything about the musical was not necessarily how I expected Glinda to be portrayed. So it was kind of oh, this is interesting. I'm finding myself liking Elphaba and not liking Glinda. And I like that reversal because it's not what the original movie gives you. And so it's fun to see how we're going to get to that reversal somehow.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I expected differences, but I didn't expect her to be like this, like, try hard wannabe head of the class, completely ignored by the headmistress and completely self-centered the whole time.
Yeah, and I think Cynthia Erivo is doing a really terrific job playing this character who has clearly been, like essentially bullied her entire life and is now like still experiencing it into adulthood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like not realizing, well, the things that make her special, are the things that are people hate about her. Realizing that things that people hate about her are actually the things that make her really special. And she's kind of getting a taste of that now because Madame Morrible is actually paying some kind of attention to her.
Yeah, and I think this is when Michelle Yeoh basically tells her, like, I'm going to teach you sorcery and you're going to get to meet the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, we get the song When I Meet the Wizard. She says, like, you'll meet the wizard. We have Michelle Yeoh's part, and she says, like, this will be a good thing for you. You'll have an opportunity to do good. And then Cynthia Erivo has her song When I Meet the Wizard, where there's
The Wizard and I. It's great. I loved it.
I love it. And it's very much that scene in like Beauty and the Beast where Belle runs out into the yard and into the field.
Yes. Yeah.
In the beginning. And if you listen, there's a lot of really great allusions in the song that I feel like are perfect. Like she proclaims that one day there'll be a celebration throughout Oz, especially to do with her.
Yeah.
Which we now know will happen later on, but it's for her death. And she says at one point, when she meets the wizard, she'll be so happy she could melt, which alludes to her demise. And throughout the scene, there's a part when she runs out. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a beautiful rainbow, and we see bluebirds fly out over it.
Amazing. That's great. I love that.
Obsessed.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get one of my favorite songs from the original soundtrack, which I loved this version of it too, which is when she moves into the room with Ariana Grande and says, which is a sweet, it's just for one, it's huge, it is opulent, it is Elaine moving into Egwene's room,
the White Tower.
in Wheel of Time, times 10. It is ridiculous, and she has a spot for Elphaba behind a rack of clothes. And she goes...
basically, like, climb through this rack of clothes and there's a little bed for you.
Yeah, and there's a sign on it that says, it's great. And she goes, look, it's great. And
that killed me.
She goes, you think this is fair? And she goes, I don't, thank you so much. I don't think it's fair. I was promised my own room.
Yes. So self-centered. It's hilarious.
Yes. And then we get the song Loathing, or What Is This Feeling? I forget what it's actually called, but...
What Is This Feeling?
Which I love.
The feeling is lesbianism. You two are in love with each other, obviously.
This feeling is sexual tension.
Yes.
I am obsessed with this song. It's the two of them, like, and their differences, why they dislike each other, all the different reasons. I almost used a line from the song for the beginning. The, unusually, exceedingly hard to describe, whatever. Yeah, so we get this whole scene where they're like, we see the evolution of their friendship over time. We see that they're going to classes. Elphaba continues to be sort of like hated by all. Everyone continues to fawn over Ariana. And Elphaba seems to kind of be doing her unbothered thing about it. She's doing her own thing, scaring them, like leaning into the character. Like, you think I'm annoying? I don't want to talk to you anyway. And if you think I'm scary, boo.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm into it, all of it. It's kind of like we're all settling in. Nessa Rose is doing her own thing too. It seems like she's embarrassed by her, but she's not, nothing major is happening. It's just whatever.
I realized in the original Wizard of Oz, we never see that the Witch of the West, the one that the house falls on.
East.
We never see... Oh, sorry. Right. The Wicked Witch of the East. We never see that she's green, but I always assumed she was.
Me too. But we never even see her or hear anything about her. We just see her socks.
Yeah, her striped socks and her ruby slippers.
Which I will say, I never saw Nessa Rose's character in striped socks, but by the end of the movie, she is in red and white colors.
Is she really?
She's in a red and white, a white sort of dress sort of thing, and it's all of the trim is red.
Interesting.
So I'm just saying.
All right. Okay.
I was looking for those socks, though.
Yeah.
I saw this twice. Ladies and gentlemen, and all folks listening, I saw this in the movie theater twice. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get the class with Dr. Dillamond, or Professor Dillamond. That's the goat professor, voiced by Peter Dinklage. And we learn that he cannot say Glinda's name properly because goats have no upper front teeth, he says. And so he always has the goat sound that we all know, that sort of like gargle.
Mm-hmm.
And he always says Glinda on accident, which she cannot handle. Why can't you say my name right? It's so easy. And he explains it, but she's ridiculous. And Elphaba in class is like, maybe you're not the center of attention. Maybe it doesn't matter what your name is.
Maybe it's not about you.
Maybe it's not about you. And she says, the artichoke is getting steamed, and everyone laughs. And, you know, we see that in this scene, basically, that Elphaba has this sort of like kinship with Dr. Dillamond because they both are different. They're both seen as less than for who they are, and she has a lot of respect for him. He teaches history, so he's teaching, you know, about different things like the Great Drought, which is why... I think the Great Drought is why we see that animals are being seen less and less, and that they're not, you know, in conventional jobs as much anymore, even though they used to be. And he's going to give a little like real history, like the things you aren't getting in the books about where the animals' role once was in Oz. But before he gets, and everyone seems to not want to hear it, except for Elphaba, especially Glinda, not interested. But when he tries to turn the board over and give more animal history, there's like slander on it. It says something like animals should be seen and not heard or something.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
And everyone seems horrified by it. And he says, who wrote this? And no one confesses to it. And he tells everyone to leave. And he accidentally like knocks over some poppies on his desk on the way out, or as people are leaving, and gets embarrassed. And Elphaba stays behind to help him. And we learn, like, poppies are his favorite flower, which we already know poppies are a big thing in the Wizard of Oz, so we're already like, And, yeah, we learn that animals throughout Oz used to have a big role, as we saw in the flashback, and now we see there's only one or two animal professors, and animals are we've learned, losing the ability to speak and being forced out of their jobs.
Yeah.
So Oz isn't as wonderful and grand as everyone thinks it is right now.
No.
And it's a reality check for some people in the class. And then we get a scene, I think, where well, I guess that's the end of that scene. Any thoughts so far?
I wasn't expecting like politics to feature into the movie, so I was kind of surprised by this, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting," and it gives Elphaba it gives her a kinship with somebody else. So I thought that was a smart addition, and it gives her character, as we'll see later in the movie, something to fight for, and kind of explains a bit of what her character develops into, or what people develop her into, the story about her that like Michelle Yeoh starts to tell. So I thought this was really clever, and makes it a bigger issue than just about Elphaba.
Yeah, I didn't see any of this coming. This was my biggest surprise from this movie, I think, was this whole huge plot line, which underscores the whole movie, it feels like.
Yeah. I wonder, do you know if this was part of the musical?
Yes, it was. I think actually Dr. Dillamond had a bigger role in the musical.
Oh,
because I think he was one of the only animals that you see speak, and in this, like, he's in a part of a meeting and stuff, and so we get like other animals singing along with him in the next song. But I think in the original, he was like the main animal that had any sort of role at all. But yeah, this was definitely in the original. And I think this was bigger in the books, actually. I think the books were more political about this kind of thing.
Okay.
So she's very emotional over this scene. We get a scene with her getting some lessons with Madame Marble to control her powers, her private lessons. I heard in the movie, or in the musical, we never see her private lessons. So this is added. But we see her having trouble basically doing basic harnessing telepathy until she's feeling passionate about something. And in this scene, she shares with Madame Marble about what happened to the goat professor. Actually, Madame Marble shares with her, I heard this happened. And we see she's passionate about it, and she's able to do the thing with the power. And Michelle is like, okay, you just have to harness your emotion and you can do this. But she's very impressed. class ends and Elphaba sees Dr. Dillamond going home. She wants to go talk to him about what happened. She follows him home, and he actually goes to like a little meeting. I think it's at his house, but it's a little meeting of animals, sort of meeting in private to talk about what's going on to other animals in Oz. And we get the song Something Bad is Happening in Oz, where they're talking about how all of these animals are losing the ability to speak and losing their jobs, and no one seems to care about it, and it's only getting worse. And Elphaba's listening in. She gets a vision, maybe of the future, it seems like, where she sees a bunch of things she's already seen, and then in addition to it, sees Dr. Dillamond in a cage. And doesn't even know what it is, really, this vision, because we haven't seen a cage in Oz. And she's like, she scares away the rest. Dr. Dillamond invites her in. We get a continuation of the song where she says, well, listen, if this is true, we have to go see the wizard, because that's why we have a wizard. And then we get a taste of Dr. Dillamond losing his voice, and we must go. So now we know what she's on a mission to do. She wants to go see the wizard somehow to let him know about what's going on with the animals so he can help. And then she is kind of off on her way back home in the woods, in the forest, and she runs into a man on horseback. The horse talks, which I thought was fun. I'm glad the horse is still talking. He's like, we just ran into a girl. And this is where she meets Prince Fiyero, but we don't know who he is yet.
No. And, but he ends up being a transfer student to Shiz.
Exactly. There are a lot of allusions in this scene, which you can look up online if you're interested, that are kind of interesting for the Wizard of Oz, but they may spoil things, so I'll just leave that there. There's a lot of cute little lines between the two of them, and you see that they're very flirty with each other. It's very much like she's ready to do her lines about being green because he makes some kind of comment about her blending in, and he kind of is like, did I ask? I don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a cute little scene where they interact with each other, and we move on. The next day, we hear an announcement. Prince Fiyero, spoiler alert from a second ago, is on his university tour. We hear later on he's been kicked out of many universities, and he is now here at Shiz, and everyone is very excited.
Yes.
Especially Galinda, who is ready to meet her man.
Yes.
I like her getting ready, the hair flips, the perfume.
Ugh. Her hair flips in this movie are so funny.
They're so funny because they're so ridiculous, too.
So ridiculous. She's so over the top. It's truly phenomenal.
Yes, they could have gone for a sexy hair flip, but they went for what they went with, which is just so perfect. Yes. Because Oz is a different place. We haven't mentioned this, and it doesn't super important, but they even have their own sort of little whimsical language in Oz. Some words just aren't the same.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't think of any right now, but
there was one where the first time I noticed it was when Michelle Yeoh was giving her address to the students, and she said something like, very intrusive or something like that. And it's just they switch out some of the vowels sometimes, and you're like, what? Yes,
exactly. Yeah, there's little things like that. So it's just a very different place. So it makes sense that this is her flirting, that's successful. Yeah. So she's all ready to go and meet Prince Fiyero, and she finds him, conveniently bumps into him, very obviously, and flirts with him, does her hair flips. Oh, you're here? Oh, I can give you a tour, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So he agrees, he's interested, she's beautiful, he's into it. This is the moment when she takes him to what she calls, this is the room with books. It's the library. And I believe somewhere in this place with books is a collection of rare books.
So funny.
I love this library. It has these big revolving tunnels of books.
Yeah.
How fun.
I will say this is when we get his Dancing Through Life song, where he's it's basically I'm great, we should just dance through life, everything's fun and enjoyable, let's party kind of song. And I think this was unnecessary for the film.
Oh, I love this song.
I didn't, but maybe I'll like it on second viewing.
I think what I like about the song is I love in musicals when songs have multiple parts that are we get Dancing Through Life is mainly his song talking about let's go to the Oz Dust Ballroom, which is a club off campus sort of, and dance through life. Everyone wants you to be so strict, and you gotta be more devil may care, and it's crazy and kooky and everyone loves him, right? But you also get like the little moment where one of the Munchkins who's been featured a little bit more than others, who is played by, I think, Ariana Grande's current partner. I think they met on this.
Yeah.
Ethan Slater.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He plays Bog, and he is very interested in Glinda.
I think
he's been
Bach.
fawning over her the whole movie. And then this is when he... I'm sorry, did you say something?
I think it's Bach.
Oh, Bach. Bach, thank you. With a Q. Sorry, I saw it as a G. So Bach. He goes over to Glinda in this during Dancing Through Life, seeing her fawn over the Fiyero, and is like, oh, you know, he's trying to flirt with her, but he's kind of like the dopey one, you know, for her. And she says, you know, I know you want to impress me, but there's a lot of references to being good, like doing good, being good. Goodness is very important in Oz, a very big virtue, especially for Glinda. And so she says, like, you know, what would be even kinder than like wanting to go with me to the Ozdust Ballroom and accompany me? And she says, you should go with Nessa, the tragically beautiful girl over there in the chair. And if you were to, it's not fair that we would go have fun without her. So you should go invite her, or someone should go invite her. That would be really kind, and that would be really impressive to me. So him, eager to please her, says, I'll do that, because he wants to get in her good graces. And he goes and asks Nessa to the dance during the song as well. And she says yes. Later in the song, he goes to confess to her because he feels guilty about why he did it. But when he goes over to talk to her and confess that he only asked her because he was, you know, told to, she guesses it ahead of time. And she's like, I already know why you're here you asked me. You only asked me because you feel sorry for me. Isn't that right? Yeah. And at the same time, he's looking at Glinda getting flirted with by the guy, and she wants to impress him, and he doesn't want to seem like a jerk, so he screams out, it's just because you're so beautiful, and let's dance, because he wants to show everybody how good he is.
Yeah.
And she's, you know, taken by it, and this is where she begins her, like, song about, like, we deserve each other, and Elphaba, and Glinda did this for me. You know, Glinda emboldened him to go see me and be with me, and she also gets to explain in the song to Elphaba what happened. You know, Glinda emboldened him to go be with me, and I deserve him, and can't I be happy that just this once? Don't you understand that? And of course, Elphaba does understand that and says, like, okay, I will try to be nicer to Glinda for you since she did this, and I'll try to just lay off and let you do your thing, even though she is suspicious. And then I think that's basically... Fiyero goes over to Glinda, noticing what she did with Bach, and is like, you know, continuing to flirt with her. And then, you know, the song kind of ends with everyone cool deciding to go to the Ozdust Ballroom later on, including Nessa Rose with Bach, and Elphaba not being any part of that. Yeah. Any thoughts about this whole scene?
Like I said, I think this was my least favorite song in the movie, but I thought the dance routine was really cool, especially with the spinning bookshelves.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I mean, maybe it'll lead into part 2, but the whole Bach and Nessa storyline, I don't know if it's gonna pay off into something in the second half, but it felt like slightly unnecessary for the first half. Mm-hmm. Although I guess, you know, part of the story that we get is Nessa distancing herself from Elphaba throughout the movie, so that she can maintain her status, whatever her status might be at the school. And so I guess maybe that'll continue to sort of show up as why Elphaba is seen as wicked. Mm-hmm. So maybe it'll pay off there.
Yeah.
Later.
I have a very strong theory about what is happening with that storyline. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how spoilery it could be. But
I mean, if you don't know whether it's true or not, then it's just a guess, right?
Yeah. So my theory is that multiple characters that we are meeting in this storyline are going to show up in The Wizard of Oz in a different way. Okay. And I think the 3 companions of Dorothy are introduced in this movie.
I do know that one of them is, because I read about it.
One, I feel was kind of obvious. It was obvious to me at the time, and then it was confirmed in one of those stupid videos.
Okay.
The other two, I was thinking maybe, is that going to be a thing? And then I was like, okay, I think the more I listen to the songs, the more I look at what's going on in the movie, I'm thinking that something is going to happen that obviously, something is going to happen that creates the character of the Scarecrow and the character of the Tin Man, I believe. And I think that it's going to have to do with vengeance in some way.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's going to be like... So my theory is that, and I don't know anything about the second, so this is just my theory. Like I said earlier, when Nessa Rose, I believe, did the vengeful thing with the rocks at the kids, I think that this is setting up Nessa Rose to be heartbroken by Bach.
Okay.
Who will then be either taken away from her as punishment,
okay,
or she will do something to him as punishment to who she believes is like his object of his desire.
I wonder, I mean, if she sees him as like heartless, maybe she could turn him into the Tin Man.
Right. And I believe that is I believe he is going to be the Tin Man in some way. I don't know why he's going to be it, but his last name, the character's last name is Woodsman.
Oh, and the Tin Man had an axe.
Yeah. He's actually, the Tin Man is the Tin Woodsman.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And
interesting.
So
all right.
I feel like that is somehow a thing. I don't know why or how that's going to happen, but I feel like that's a thing. And I feel like it's going to either be done to Nessa Rose or done because of Nessa Rose.
Okay.
So that's what I think is happening here. Some sort of setup for why he would be the one without a heart.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry. Yeah, the one without a heart because of the heartlessness of this behavior.
Interesting. I like that.
So that's my kind of theory. And I have a similar theory for Fiyero with the Scarecrow. Because he's dancing through life and the Scarecrow is known for dancing.
Yeah.
And I just feel like... Oh, and this is not a spoiler, but I do remember... In my opinion, he's going to be Scarecrow because when Elphaba meets him, she says something to him like, get stuffed.
Oh. Huh.
So I don't know why or how, but I think that's going to be a thing too. And I just feel like it's going to have to do with their relationships with Elphaba and Nessa Rose and Glinda.
Yeah.
And changes and things that happen. But I just don't know who is going to be responsible and how it's all going to come to be.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay. All right. I love it.
Okay, so... We get back to the end of the song. We get a quick... This is a cute scene, and I think this is from the original too. We learn where... Okay, I'll just say it. So, Galinda is in her room with her friends, getting ready to get her outfit for the Ozdust later, and she pulls out the black Wicked Witch of the West hat that we all know.
Yes.
In this, it's very much more, like, stylized, but I still think it's, like... I like it. It's like... I don't know how to describe it.
I do too.
But anyway, it's the black hat, and her friends are like, ew, that's gross. What are you doing with that tacky hat? And she's like, oh, my aunt sends me all this shit that she makes, basically. And she thinks it would be a fun prank, or the three of them think it would be a fun prank to get Elphaba to wear it and show up at the Ozda since she hasn't been invited. And this is also during the same song. It's like a reprise of the song where she encounters Elphaba in the room, and she's like, oh, you really should... Oh, no, I'm sorry. She's talking to Elphaba because she approaches her with Nessa Rose and says, we were just talking about you, because she's trying to be nice. And she's like, oh, we were talking about you too. You should come out with us to the Ozdust, and you better not say you don't have anything to wear because you wear this hat. It's so smart.
Yeah.
Matches everything you wear. And she's like, okay. And she seems kind of like whatever, but, she kind of goes off on her own. She feels like maybe this is an act of kindness, and she feels like what she did for her sister was an act of kindness. And so she feels like she wants to be vulnerable, accept that kindness, and do something good in return, which is something she's been asked of Glinda in a previous scene, which is like, can you get me in on your private lessons with Madame Marble?
Yeah.
Which she's previously, of course, not been interested in, but now she's like, okay, maybe I'll consider it. I kind of spoiled that. She goes off to go see Madame Marble in private. We don't know what it's for, but we will come to find out that she's gone to advocate for her.
Yeah.
We go to the Ozdust ballroom and we see the scene. It's like kind of reminds me of the Bronze.
A little bit, yeah.
Buffy, but with like rocks. So they're all the club,
cool kids,
doing their thing, having fun, and all of a sudden, in walks Madame Morrible to speak to Galinda. And she's like, oh my God, hi, we're just... She's like, I don't care. She still has no interest in her. Michelle Yeoh is great. She's like, I don't know why I'm here. Here, I'm just giving you this. And she gives her a wand, which is like a precursor to the wand she eventually has, it looks like. And she's like, I'm not giving you this because I believe in you. I'm doing this as a favor because your roommate asked me to. I don't know why, but she threatened to like quit practice, and I'm not going to do that. So I have no faith in you. I don't think you're going to do any good. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. Probably not. Here's your wand. See you later. And by the way, you can thank your roommate because she's here now. And she's just like, wah. And then in walks Elphaba wearing the hat, all excited. And everyone stops and looks at her, and you hear everyone like, oh my God, what is that on her head? And all this stuff, you know?
Yeah, they start laughing and making fun of her, basically.
Yeah, and everyone kind of like backs away from her as she walks out there, and she has the opportunity. And speaking of acting, like, yes, Ariana's acting at the beginning is incredible, those nuanced faces and everything, but this scene, from this moment on till the end of it, with both of them, but Cynthia Erivo, just some of the most incredible... emotional, impactful, real acting. Like, she shows up, she has the opportunity, you could see in her body language, to turn around and walk out, but she doesn't. She keeps walking in, and it's like, it gets very quiet, and everyone's looking at her, and Galinda's looking at her, holding the wand now, feeling this feeling of guilt, having humiliated her. And Elphaba, instead of leaving, just walks in front of everybody and has everyone around her and begins to do a dance.
Yes.
It's sort of an interpretive dance. I tried to look it up to see if it's based on anything. It doesn't appear to be. But it's sort of a dance where, in my opinion, what's happening here is it's like, you want to look at me, everyone wants to look at me and think I'm something strange. Well, here I am.
Here you go.
Here I am. And she does like a dance that's very interpretive, and then she takes moments in it where she like kind of walks towards the crowd and they get spooked by her, and she just is being vulnerable and open and expressing herself and showing them that I'm not going to run out of here. I'm here.
Yeah. And
Galinda is standing with Fiyero, who says like, wow, she really doesn't care what anyone thinks. And she says, of course she does. She just pretends she doesn't. And she sees what's happening. Nessa looks horrified. And then Galinda walks out to her and her friends tell her, like, stop. And she's like, no. And then there's this moment, which I heard was, like, filmed. Like, the tears and stuff that you see are very real from both actresses. And they just kept it in. And Galinda starts to mime the dance back with her. And poorly, and is getting made fun of, but continues to do it. And then they reach out the back of their hands and touch. And then they do the dance together. And in silence, and they see each other, and they really, really connect and really see each other in themselves for the first time, and it's very beautiful. I sobbed. I'm getting emotional talking about it.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah. And then they run out of the place, and we get a scene of them like back in their room after a party. It's very like after a crazy experience with your friend, and you're back. It's like, oh, that was crazy. Time. Like,
yeah,
I can't believe that just happened. And any thoughts so far?
I thought the character's choice to dance was interesting. Like, the way you described it makes sense to me. When I was watching the movie, I was like, I don't know. I mean, if I were like being laughed at in a room full of people, I wouldn't choose to do an interpretive dance in response, but it makes sense the way you described it. And I really liked once she and Ariana started dancing with each other, but it was so interesting and I guess the whole movie is sort of about popular opinion and perspectives on other people, but it's irritating to me that this thing that Cynthia Erivo was doing was like being ridiculed, but then the minute somebody popular does it, suddenly everybody's like, oh, this is cool, and then everyone starts doing it. Like, I know it was like sort of about acceptance, but it's sort of like shitty. Also shows how shitty people are.
I think that's intentional.
Yeah,
I think that's intentional, because I totally agree. It shows like Elphaba is not palatable at all to these people. Not even pretty or not even palatable at all to these people until they could see her through the lens of someone they respect.
Totally.
And that's like, I don't think that's not intentional. I think it's a bittersweet moment. I think it's a sweet moment for the two of them, and a bittersweet take on humanity at large.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with you. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, then I think we get probably the other song from Wicked that I recognize when Ariana Grande offers to give Elphaba a makeover and tells her she's going to make her popular, so we get the song Popular.
Yes. Popular.
I thought this was very cute. Although we talked about the costuming earlier on, and as somebody who like makes costumes and knows how to sew decently, I like watching costumes and kind of like going, how did they make that? Like, how much effort went into this? That sort of thing. And the little pink sort of like nightie dress that she's wearing during Popular with like all the ruffles on it are ruffles that are made in a way that no machine can make. So all of those ruffles were done by hand, which is just means there's hours and hours and hours and hours of work that went into making this one little costume for the Popular number.
Wow. I remember that costume.
It just kind of blew me away. Yeah, it's kind of like a silly frilly negligee thing, but I was like, oh no, this was like made by hand. That's kind of nuts.
That's gorgeous. I read that the costumers, or the main costume, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know the title, director of costuming, whatever, was inspired by mushrooms and organic grown things in most, if not all, of the main costumes, like the way mushrooms grow out and stuff like that, and fungus.
That's fun.
And you can kind of see that, especially in that one, the curves and ripples of that. Very that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this scene. I heard in many places, this is, I guess, common trivia now, but the director and people who made this movie wanted Ariana to do a like hip hop version of Popular.
Yeah, and she was like, absolutely not.
Hell no. Yeah. I also read that she auditioned like 6 times. Like, she had to go through so many auditions to get this role.
That's wild.
A lot of them did.
I think, do you know the singer Dove Cameron?
Yes.
I think she was like kind of up against Ariana for this role.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, she also is a great singer and kind of came up, I think, through Disney acting as well.
Oh, did she?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I only know her from a few songs. I didn't even know.
Yeah, she has, she was originally supposed to be Glinda. But maybe well, I won't spoil anything. I just Googled something, but go ahead.
That's really cool. Yeah, I just love the song. We also learn that Elphaba believes that she is responsible for her mom's death and that it's her fault that Nessa is in the wheelchair, because when her mother was pregnant with Nessa, her dad was so scared she'd turn out green that she made her eat milk flowers every day. And this made her have a premature delivery of Nessa, and her legs never grew to what they were supposed to, and they made her weaker, and then they also made her mother pass away from childbirth. So she feels responsible. Yeah. And we see a lot of moments of humanity from Ariana in this moment. From Glinda. We still see who she is, but we see the other sides of her. And she just puts a flower in her hair at the end of Popular, and Elphaba is uncomfortable by the idea of being popular and being made over, but kind of excited and hard to see herself in a new light and all of that, and runs out of the room at the end, feeling conflicted about being called beautiful and feeling different than she's ever felt before, and what does that mean about her and all this stuff. Love this scene. And then we get a scene where she's in class. Now they're friends. She's in class. We're sitting with Fiyero and Glinda. And it's with Dr. Dillamond, and he says it's his last class because he's not allowed to teach anymore. And, like, guards basically barge in and take him away very aggressively. Everyone is kind of horrified by it, even those who didn't respect him before. And then a guy comes in and gives a presentation, basically, of this new contraption being rolled out. And it's a cage with a little lion cub in it. And everyone's like, what is that? And they're like, oh, we're calling it a cage. And we put them, we're going to use them to have the animals in. They love it. They think it's great. And if we cage them young, they'll never learn to talk. And
this is where somebody confirmed that this is supposed to be the Cowardly Lion.
Yeah, this is the one I was like, okay, I think that's going to be the Cowardly Lion, because ultimately they're horrified by this. Most everybody. It doesn't. They're like, if he likes it, why does he look horrified? And no one's going to do anything about it, though. And so Elphaba, like, slams her fists down, and she has all of the poppies in the room, because we know Dr. Dillman always had poppies. She actually brought him these poppies. Fly into the air and release their poppy dust, and she has it affect everyone in the room except for Fiyero.
Yeah.
And everyone passes out, just like the poppies. And she's like, okay. And Fiero's like, well, here we are. I don't know what's going on, but we got to do something. So he grabs the lion, releases him from the cage, and he and Elphaba run out. They go on their bicycles, which Elphaba's bike is the iconic basket on the back bike that we see later on Elmira Gulch have. And she has the lion cub in the basket in the back, which peeks out just like Toto did. And they release the lion in the wild in the woods. And I think that's going to be why this lion can still speak when all the other animals don't speak in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Because he was released early and lived in the woods in secret. You know what I mean? And so, so they release him, and then they have a moment together because they are, surprised that in each other's, virtue, I guess, and who they really are. She was hoping, I guess, this would be who he was. That's why she didn't have him fall asleep. She was hoping he was the person she wanted him to be, and they're impressed by this. And he's clearly changed by this experience. He's having a hard time with all of it. They're flirting, they're connecting, and he kind of like runs away because it's getting too close. And she has her song, I'm Not That Girl, about, wanting to be the girl
that Fiero's into.
Yeah, but she's clearly not, which, very emotional. We get in the next scene that a message is coming from Oz because Madame Marble wrote to Oz when she saw the power of Elphaba. And she, because I'm sorry, I missed this part. Madame Marble found everyone asleep in the room with the poppies, and so she knows that Elphaba did it. And she's like, okay, that's it. I got to tell the wizard. So she writes to the wizard, and on a very mechanical-looking balloon contraption, very circusy, comes across from the wizard. Everyone's very impressed. A letter that says, Elphaba, you are hereby summoned or invited to meet with the wizard in the Emerald City. And she's like, all right, cool. It rains, and there's a moment. I'm wondering what's going to happen with why she can't be with water. I'm wondering if it's now already or later, but there is a moment where it rains here, and Madame Marble puts an umbrella over her and says, can't have you getting wet, not when you're, like, just starting out or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is just a fun illusion or if it means that she really can't get wet yet or something. I don't know what that's going to be, but...
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, how did she get this far in life with never getting wet before?
Right, and how did we not find out about this yet, this whole time?
Yeah.
But anyhow... she decides she's going to go, and we get basically she's at the train. I love the way they did the train. Do you know that that's like a real practical train?
Oh my gosh. The train was amazing. It was so cool looking.
Like, I'm sure it doesn't run, but it moves on a track and everything. It's that big. I saw like a behind the scenes look insane. So, wow. So the train comes, everyone's there to see her off. A bunch of people are. Fiero's not there, but she's standing with Galinda, and, she learns that Fiero's been different. Galinda says he's been thinking lately, which has me worried. And he's different since something happened with Dr. Dillamond. And Galinda says, who knew he cared so much about that old goat? And then Fiero shows up, clearly different, not only from that experience, but probably from his connection with Elphaba in the woods and what that meant to him. And it's like an uncomfortable moment. They're all standing there. And it's very much that moment where he and Elphaba are having like a silent conversation with each other, like a silent goodbye, and how they've been thinking about that night, that day together. And Galinda wants to be in the in crowd and be part of it. So she's like, oh yes, me too. What happened to Dr. Dillman was terrible, and it's not hitting. So she needs to do a grand announcement.
Yeah.
And she says to everybody there, I'm hereby changing my name in solidarity with what's happened to Dr. Dillamond. It's unacceptable, and because he could never say my name correctly, I'm going to change my name from Galinda to Glinda. And she can't handle it. It's like horrifying for her, and everyone's like, wow. Except for Fiero and Elphaba, who are like, okay. Anyway. And she gets all the oohs and ahs from everyone else, but not from Fiero, so she's like, damn, why did I even do that?
Yeah.
And he's off, wishes Elphaba well. Elphaba hops on the train and is leaving, and last minute is like, Glinda, come with me. And Glinda's like, I couldn't possibly, okay, I'm coming. And then they're off.
So
the
cute.
Emerald City, which when they get there, I thought was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Gorgeous. It was huge. Just way more what I would expect from the Emerald City. I love it. And
you mean you didn't miss the weird golden apple in the sky?
Oh, I did. I was wondering why there wasn't a golden apple that transformed into a Fuji apple in the sky for no reason. We get over to the Emerald City. They're having a great day. We get a song, One Short Day in the Emerald City, which has been expanded upon for the movie because fun little cameos. They have a moment where they get to see the Emerald City Players, which are like, people putting on a show in the middle of the Emerald City for tourists. And they're telling the story of how the Wizard of Oz came to Oz and came to be the wizard. And during the middle of it, the two main Emerald City players are played by Kristen Chenoweth and Adele Dazeem / Idina Menzel. And I thought they were incredible. And they sing the song together about how Oz came to be, which is that there were a bunch of wise ones at the beginning or something like that. And they all had magical powers, and they knew they wouldn't be around forever, so they wrote the Grimoire, which I read is just a real word. I didn't even know. A book of spells. They wrote the Grimoire so that their knowledge wouldn't be lost, but unfortunately they wrote it in a language that could not be read by anybody else. And everyone waited and waited and waited for someone to come along and be able to read the Grimoire and restore Oz to its splendor. And then the Wizard of Oz came on this balloon from the sky and was able to read it. And everyone celebrated the Wizard of Oz is here and he has the Grimoire. And that's where we are at.
Yeah.
Is that basically the whole story?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they do a great job of singing it. You could tell they're using their original kind of characterizations of Elphaba and Glinda during the song, which is a lot of fun.
Totally.
And I read that, or I heard, Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel were in an interview talking about when they were asked to do it. They were originally going to be these like old crones, and they were like, "Hell no."
Yeah,
we're going to be fabulous.
We're going to be us. Yeah,
which they were. And of course, they have moments with their counterparts, Cynthia and Ariana, which were really cute during the song. And it was a hoot.
I didn't know they were going to be in the movie, but I loved that.
Me too. I was hoping they would be in some way, but I was like, how? But I'm so glad they were.
Yeah.
And there are, what was I going to say? Day cameos, the Grimoire. I don't know. I thought I had something to say, but I forgot. But yeah, I really like this moment. They are loving their day in Emerald City. They're like, we could move here. This is the life. They are escorted to go see the wizard because they've been invited. They have the invitation. There's no big deal here. I did read that the guy who says like the wizard will see you now was the same guy who said in the original movie or something like that.
He was the songwriter. For the movie.
That's it. I thought that was fun. So they're on their way to go see the wizard, and when they go inside, we have that same big mechanical. It looked really cool though, the big mechanical wizard face, the way they did it in this one.
Yeah. I loved that it was kind of like a big eerie puppety type thing.
Yeah, it reminded me of the one in The Wiz more than the one in The Wizard of Oz.
It did.
Right?
I agree, yeah.
But quickly, this big scary flaming face is like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was you. And Jeff Goldblum, aka The Wizard of Oz. Great casting, I think.
He's phenomenal as the wizard.
Perfect.
Although I do have a criticism.
Oh, okay.
I think he was great. I love that he's so quirky and perfection for the wizard. He has a song called A Sentimental Man where he kind of like talks about himself and being in Oz. I thought that was the weakest song in the movie. I
agree. I skip it every time. I listen to it for a second. I skip it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you.
It's not great.
I mean, I just don't care for the song in general, but I'm not saying he did a bad job of presenting it. I just think it's just not my song.
I'll be bold. I'll say it. I don't think he has a great voice for singing. Sorry.
There it is. Okay.
But
yes.
Okay. So when Cynthia Erivo is about to like read the Grimoire, they're like, "Oh, go read it, and you can cast a spell and demonstrate for the wizard your abilities." And Madame Morrible is there too.
Oh yeah, she pops up and she's like, witness. "Oh, I had to be here for your big moment. You could, read the Grimoire. That's the whole reason you're here."
Why weren't you on the train then? Anyway. I love that Cynthia Erivo has this opportunity to like degreen herself, but instead, she wants her wishes to help the animals of Oz instead of degreening herself. And I just
Yes.
love that character development of like, it's not about me. There's something bigger than me that I have to fight for and advocate for.
Yeah, I love that moment. And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that, and this is your chance to do something for the animals, because the animals need help." And he says that all of his guards are monkeys, by the way. They're like these blue shaded monkeys.
Yeah.
Which I thought looked great. The way they were like, sometimes CGI animal, I thought they looked great.
I did too.
And I like the way they moved as well.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the guards are monkeys. They're all in there. And this one, his main guard is in there. And he says, this guard is always looking to the sky. He's always wanted to fly. He's always jealous of the birds. And, this is her chance to help. But how will she do it? So Elphaba walks over to the grimoire, and it kind of opens to the page when she thinks about, what they're saying they want to do, which is have this monkey be able to fly. And there's this page that I thought the grimoire looked really cool too, the way it opened and flipped around, like the double...
Like a double diamond.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yes. But it opens to these pages in this ancient language, and they're like, oh well. And she's looking at it, puzzled, and Madame Morrible says it's a very hard thing. I can only read maybe a word or two. And she just starts doing the incantation. She reads it perfectly. I don't know if it's any actual language, but it's like an unknown language to us. Sounds like ancient. And we see the words start to glow and wings on the page start to like peel off the page. It was really cool. And at the same time, we see the monkey in the room start to like writhe on the floor in pain, scratch at his back. And we see the way they animated it, I thought was very effective because it was, you felt like you could understand that this creature was in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Like you felt...
Yeah, totally.
I felt very sympathetic and emotional watching this happen to a CGI monkey.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Totally, I completely agree.
It was crazy. Like the way they animated the wings sprouting from the back in a very organic way, but not bloody. Not bloody. Just not natural. And it jarring the way they sprung out, and then the feathers, the way they grew on the wings and sort of flew all over the room, and he kind of like flopped around on the ground unaware of how to use the wings, which seemed to be acting independently, and everyone is kind of having varied reactions. Like Elphaba doesn't really see it completely happening at first. She sees like the later end of it, and she is horrified because she could tell he's in pain. She's at first in awe, but she could tell he's in pain because he flies up into the air eventually and then crashes to the ground because he doesn't know how to use his wings. And he just got transformed. But Madame Morrible and the wizard are like, she did it. This is amazing, amazing. And they're like, they're going to make perfect spies. And meanwhile, Glinda is like, she doesn't know really how it doesn't appear that she feels horrified or excited, but she's just astonished at seeing magic happen.
Yeah.
Like, that just happened. She's like, you did it. You did that. And she's astonished. Kind of doesn't know what to say, but Elphaba's horrified by their reaction, and it says, like, why would you think this is a good thing? And then through this, she kind of exposes him. She's like, it was you. You knew this was going to happen. You wanted this to happen, and it was you who made the cages in the first place, wasn't it? And he says, trust me where I'm from, these help, and what I know is that everyone, when they're in a bad place, needs a common enemy. And all of Oz will benefit from this. And she's horrified, and she goes out into the hallway because she hears noise, and she sees all of the guards. All of the guards have transformed and have wings, and it's a horrific scene again. Like, the feathers everywhere, all of them scratching at themselves, the sound of it. And she's like, I can't believe you did this. And she's like, fix it. Put it back. And he says, they can't. Grimoire spells are irreversible. And then she exposes him. You can't do anything. You have no power. And he says, yeah, I don't. That's why I need you. And he's like, she's like, what the hell? And he's like, listen, you could be at my side. You can have real power. Trust me. It'll be great. We can degreenify you, maybe. Who knows? You can have it all. But she's like, absolutely not. And she's like, well, maybe your friend Glinda can be here too. And then Glinda's like, oh, Elphaba, we could be we could be here. We could make change maybe here. We could do it.
Yeah.
Think of what we could do. And she's like, no, absolutely not. And she rushes away with the grimoire and runs for her life. Madame Marble tells Glinda, you want to do something good for once? Go get her. She sends her after her, and they're escaping. So Madame Marble goes and tells all the flying monkeys, you know who did that to you? The green one. Go get her. Mm-hmm. And so they're all after her now. And so she's running away through this palace or this castle of Oz, in the Emerald City, and Ariana's running after her, Glinda's running after her, and they're getting attacked by the monkeys and running away and trying to escape, and they get to the room with the balloon in it. And they hop on, and they're going to use the balloon to escape, and they're, everyone's chasing after them. The guards are chasing after them. These are the guards that I'm assuming will eventually be green as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how that's going to happen still, but I'm assuming these guards will turn green, because they're sort of in similar costumes.
Yeah.
And they're after them, and they are, doing the thing with the balloon that makes it go up with the flame. I don't know what that's called, pulling the little lever.
Yeah.
It's going up. It's very the Willy Wonka scene, but not, where they're going up towards the top.
Yeah. The bubble burping scene.
Yes. But the top is closing on them, and they're never going to fit through that. They're never going to get out. I don't even know why they're trying, but they keep pulling the lever to get the balloon up, and it eventually gets to the top, and it bursts. And as we know, there's a lot of gas in there and stuff, and so flames are blowing, and fire, big fire. And so now they're at the top of this tower or whatever. Glinda and Elphaba, and they are alone for a moment because they have gone so high up, and people are going to take time to get to them, and there's fire, and they barricade themselves in a room using a broom and some other stuff in the room. And this room, if you look around, has all of circus stuff, and it has the wizard's real name. I don't know if I wrote it down or not. But there's a poster for who he was in the circus back home, among a bunch of other circus stuff from our world, Kansas. And we get the song that we're all waiting for, which is the beginning of Defying Gravity, which many of us know starts with, I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy now.
Yeah.
And we get that I Hope You're Happy Now song scene, and now I learned the full context of it, because I never really knew the full context of the song, even though I've heard the lyrics a gajillion times. Mm-hmm. But it's basically Ariana saying, we could have had it all. We could still go back and apologize, and don't you know, you could have everything you ever wanted, and maybe, you want to make change. Maybe you can make the change you want if you get this power first and all this stuff. And she's like, no, I know I could have what I thought I wanted, but I don't want it, and I can't want it anymore. And that's, the lines from the song. And throughout the song, eventually people get close to them, and they're getting in there, and Madame Marble is proclaiming across Oz on a loudspeaker, like the news, that there is a wicked force out in the world. And her green skin is a manifestation of her twisted nature within. And Elphaba is hearing this. Everyone's hearing this. Madame Marble, who stood with her and said that you're special and there's nothing wrong with you, is now proclaiming that her green skin is a manifestation of her twisted nature. And she's the wicked witch, and everyone should be afraid of her and after her. She's turned these monkeys into flying monkeys. She's stolen the grimoire. She is a menace. Terrible. Oh my god. Awful. And I think that's why they created that other character at the beginning, that other teacher, because I bet you Madame Marble does it in the musical. I bet you she's the one that comes into the class and takes the professor away, but I bet they were trying to bury the lead a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
That's my guess. I'm going to say, but anyway, they don't know what they're going to do, but now we're at the point where there's no turning back. And she wants to go off and...
She defies gravity.
Yeah, she wants to go off and do her own thing, and she invites Glinda to do it with me. Do it. The two of us together, we can make change. We could do good. And Glinda's looking at her, and she's like, she can't do it. She can't bring herself to do it. And there's a tear. She gets her the cloak that we'll eventually see the Wicked Witch of the West wear. This huge black cloak, which I read in the show, the Broadway production of it. It covers the whole stage, which explains why it's so big. But she looks at her and says, friend, I hope you don't live to regret it. I hope you get it and don't live to regret it. And sends her off. Before she's off, how is she going to get away? She opens the grimoire and tries to cast the flight spell again, seemingly maybe on herself or something, just to get out. But it doesn't seem to work until a broom, the one she used to barricade the door, among other things, becomes alive, basically, and flies into the air towards her. She grabs the broom, gives it a whirl. We finish out the Defying Gravity song with her flying out there. Madame Morrible and the wizard come in and see her out there. The monkeys are flying after her. The announcement's been made. And she is saying, like, she's going to make good. She's going to do what she needs to do. She's going to defy gravity and all that. And Madame Morrible looks at Galinda and says something to her like, well, this is your chance, basically, or something like that. And we see this moment where Galinda looks like, she sings out like, I hope you're happy. And we get the, oh, oh, oh. Moment. There is a really cool sequence when she first gets the broom and jumps out where she's falling, and it looks like maybe she won't get away. She doesn't have the broom anymore, and we see her reflection of her little self in the mirror. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Before the broom comes and basically saves her, and then we get that iconic ending of her in the sky. And part 2 to be continued. I know it's a long journey, but it's Wicked Part 1. This movie was like almost 3 hours long, y'all.
I know. Again, like I said, hate musicals, hate long movies, not a big fan of The Wizard of Oz. So everything added up to me not liking this movie. And so now I am ready to render my final judgment.
All right. Well, let's hear what the people are saying.
Okay.
I'm sure this is going to evolve, but at the time of this recording, which is the beginning of 2025, spoiler alert, the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb are as follows. IMDb, 8.0.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes, Tomato Meter, 88%.
Okay.
Audience Popcorn Meter, 95%.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, let me just calibrate for a moment.
Yes, let's discuss.
Historically, my lowest rating that I think I gave, the lowest ratings I've given were to The Wiz, which I gave a 5, and The Next Karate Kid, which I gave a 5. The one with, what's her name? Hilary Swank, thank you. The highest ratings I have given were a 9 for Beauty and the Beast, the original, and I think Mean Girls. I guess Mean Girls I gave an 8.5. So Beauty and the Beast I gave a 9. I'm going to give Wicked a 9.5 and make it my highest rated film we've covered on this podcast.
My heart I'm just so glad I don't have to end this friendship. Yeah, you liked it great. A lot, huh?
Like I loved it. I went into it going, these are all the things I hate, but I'm going to experience it. I love Cynthia Erivo. I love Ariana Grande. I trust that the things that I'm hearing about this and everybody loving the musical so much are accurate. And so I just set myself up, I think, to enjoy it. And I really, there were very few moments where I was like, this is a long movie. You know how like in almost every movie, there's that moment where you're like, okay, we've hit the sort of plateau. Could we move it along here? I did never really feel that with this. And so I'm really glad about that. I think they kept it moving for almost 3-hour movie.
I agree. Shockingly.
Visuals, costumes, music, practical effects, special effects, all were top tier. So it's great. I think it's, like I said, one of the best movies we've covered on this podcast so far.
I love that. Okay.
Yay.
I want to give it a 9.7, but I wanted to know what my highest rating was.
Okay, your highest rating was a 9.8 for Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead and a 9.7 for Beetlejuice.
Oh, wow. See, I was really fast and loose. I'm not going to adjust my old ratings. I'm just going to evolve as a human being as we go, because I didn't leave enough room. I'm going to just say my old ratings might need to be reconsidered in our collective brains a little bit.
Sure.
I'm going to say this one gets a 9.8 because I just think it's so near perfect. I have so little to say about it. I had high expectations from some of the things, and then I saw some stupid like, I don't like the way they did the audio. And it just was so perfect. And I am a person who, I don't know if I have an overactive bladder yet, but it's getting there. Like I always have to use the bathroom at some point, and I need to have a large beverage when I'm in a movie theater. So it's just inevitable when I see a movie that's 2 hours that I'm going to have a point in the movie where I'm going to have to go to the bathroom.
You're going to have to pee.
I hate missing parts. I just hate it. So unless I've seen it already, I'm not going to get up. So then I have to decide when is the part of the movie where I'm going to get uncomfortable, aware of my body, and this movie was like almost 3 hours and it never happened. Like I had to go to the bathroom at one point, and I was like, all right, I'll wait, I'll see if I can wait, and I completely forgot. I just got so wrapped back up in the movie. It paced so well.
Yeah, it really did.
Like this is part 1, and it exceeds or meets the length of the musical, I think, without the intermission, I believe. So
oh wow,
I think a lot of people were like, why is part 1 going to exceed the length of the whole musical? But when you do a musical, you don't have time to do all the things you could do in a movie visually. So I think that's why. Anyway, I'm mad that I have to wait a whole year for part 2, especially since I have all these theories and stuff that I want to explore. And I want to know what happens.
Well, I think it's safe to say that this is a beauty for both of us then.
Oh, big time beauty. And I stand by that when this comes back out, part 2, we have to at least do Return to Oz as a precursor.
All right, I'm willing to return to the land of Oz.
Listen, if you liked this one, a story that starts with Dorothy in a sanitarium as a teenager, it's kind of interesting.
Well, next week we are back when we're doing another little trilogy. We thought it was going to be a duology, but it turns out there's a trilogy. We are doing the Nosferatu movie series. So we're doing the original I think it's 1929 Nosferatu. 1922. God. And it's a silent film, which I don't think I've ever seen a silent film before.
I took a film class in college once. That is the only time I've ever seen silent films, ever, was for class.
Okay, I might have done something for a film class then, now that you say that.
Yeah, I think it was Metropolis, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, or maybe, who knows? Anyway, yeah, it's going to be a new experience. It's going to be an experience. I've been looking it up a little bit just to see what to expect. I'm excited. I didn't know. We originally were just going to do the brand new one, obviously. But you found out, there's a one from the 70s.
Yeah, so we're going to do that one as well. Should be fun.
I'm excited. It's definitely a sharp left turn, I think, in vibe and color. We're going from bright green and pink to black and white.
And white and horror and should be fun.
Yeah, so stay tuned next week, and as usual, please let us know if you have any suggestions for future episodes, because we're always looking.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to do your part to help us grow, the very best thing that you could do is to rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen to us right now.
Yes, and also word of mouth is huge. So if you're enjoying our podcast, go tell a friend who you think might enjoy our podcast, because that's the number one reason somebody tries a new podcast.
And check us out on social media. We love hearing from you. So go on Instagram. You can find us at RebootyPod. Comment and let us know what you think of the episodes. You can email us at rebootypod@gmail.com. We just love hearing from you in any way. So send us a message.
Yes. And we also have a Patreon, which is patreon.com/NNMatt. We do fun bonus episodes like movie reviews that don't have reboots, back catalog with fun games and stuff, so check it out.
Yes, and thank you so much for listening to Rebooty and the Beast.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.